things really started to get interesting. During the night on March 23rd, news started to be released that the stimulus bills for economic relief here in America contain language about creating a digital dollar. CoinDesk brought the news. House stimulus bills envision digital dollar to ease coronavirus recession. And according to the article, under the draft bills shared last week, dubbed the Take Responsibility for Workers and Families Act and the Financial Protections and Assistance for America's Consumers, States, Businesses, and Vulnerable Populations Act, the Federal Reserve, the nation's central bank, could use a digital dollar and digital wallets to send payments to qualified individuals, consisting of $1,000 for minors and $2,000 to legal adults. Well, that news cycle, it went quick, because by yesterday, the 24th, one of the bills removed the digital dollar language. Just 10 hours later from their first article, CoinDesk posted this one: digital dollar stripped from latest U.S. coronavirus relief bill. And in the article, the latest version of the Take Responsibility for Workers and Family Act, revealed late Monday, does not contain any language around a digital dollar in its section on direct stimulus payments. I wonder why it was removed so quickly. Why was it in there in the first place? Well, the newest draft of the bill is much more vague, how people will be paid, which starts on page 1090. It's just non-specific, and there's just amounts named, but not how the payments are coming through, a check, debit card, or digitally. Although there is that other bill, the Financial Protections and Assistance for Americans' Consumers, States, Businesses, and Vulnerable Populations Act. Here is that bill, and as we can see, it will require member banks to maintain pass-through digital dollar wallets for certain persons and for other purposes. And if we search by the term digital, it is found 35 times throughout this bill. Now, this one isn't proposing creating a digital crypto dollar, but a digitized version of the existing dollar. According to the draft, the digital dollar will be dollar balances consisting of digital ledger entries recorded as liabilities in the accounts of any Federal Reserve bank. So it would be on a digital ledger, as the bill says, consisting of digital ledger entries, which means they would be using a blockchain, most likely a private consortium chain, fully controlled by the Fed and its member organization. But here's what is interesting. Going back to that CoinDesk article about the first bill being stripped of its digital dollar language, they mention this bill at the end and say it still mentions the digital dollar, although that language is expected to be removed from that bill as well, according to a source familiar with the matter. So once again, why was it introduced to only be stripped in the blink of an eye? We can't just blink and let the fact that they were planning on doing it slip right by, as I'm sure that is exactly why they did it. The elite accidentally revealed their ultimate plans, and things are going to get hairy. Let me try to explain why. So the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, they are the agency that ensures your deposits in the bank will actually be there. And this FDIC isn't the Fed. It's a completely independent agency. The FDIC is the primary federal regulator of banks that are not chartered by the states and that do not join the Federal Reserve System, aka they regulate the private banks. And you know what? They were created in response to bank failures and the bank runs during the Great Depression, as there was a desperate scramble for cash, a liquidity crunch, and a failing stock market. Sound similar to what is going on right about now? Well, that old FDIC tweeted this yesterday. Forget the mattress. Keeping large sums of cash at home is risky. The best place to protect your money is in an FDIC insured bank where it's safe and sound. Learn how the FDIC safeguards your money. Well, let's just learn from FDIC Chairman Jelena McWilliams.
We're living in unprecedented time. At a time of a pandemic like this, it is way too easy to get confused and to have fear about what you should be doing with your money in your accounts, especially as you're looking at the volatility in the stock market and the financial sector. This is what I would like you to take away from this. Your money is safe at the banks. The last thing you should be doing is pulling your money out of the banks now, thinking that it's going to be safer someplace else. You don't want to be walking around with large wads of cash, and you certainly don't want to be hoarding cash in your mattress. It didn't pan out well for so many people. And I will tell you this, no depositor has lost a penny of their insured deposits since 1933, when the FDIC was created. So if you're talking about having your money in a safe place, please keep it in an FDIC-insured bank.
So to me, that reeks of desperation, basically begging you to keep your dollars with the banks. And so why would they do this? Because they know a bank run is coming. And the banks across America don't have and never had the deposits to fulfill an American population withdraw. And that is why I personally think we should not count out the digital dollar. You gotta realize something. The head of the Treasury Department, Steve Mnuchin, Snoochie Boochies, just brought on somebody interesting to the office of the Comptroller of the Currency. What is this branch? Well, it serves to charter, regulate, and supervise all national banks, the federally licensed branches and agencies of foreign banks in the United States. Basically regulates what the FDIC doesn't. So, back in 2017, when Steve Mnuchin was brought in as the Treasury Secretary, he was bringing in some friends with him who worked at One West Bank. Yeah, that bank, formerly Indy Mac, who Steve bought after the financial crisis. He changed its name and then was accused of highly unethical foreclosures, including on elderly and widows. So who did he bring on? According to this CNBC article, back when he was nominated, people familiar with the discussions, the Trump administration is considering 2 of his deputies to head key regulatory agencies. Former One West General Counsel Brian Brooks for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and former One West Chief Executive Joseph Otting for the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. Joseph Otting, he made it. He was sworn in shortly after, and he is currently the most powerful person in the banking industry as the Comptroller of the Currency. But Brian Brooks, yeah, we remember him. We talked about him a few days ago. He didn't get the position for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So what did Brian go do? He went to Coinbase, became their chief legal officer, and created the roadmap for the USDC, Coinbase's digital dollar. So when I made that video last week about Brian leaving Coinbase and joining the Office of the Comptroller as their chief operating officer, I didn't realize Brian was best friends with Steve and Joseph at One West. These guys have worked together really freaking closely, going back to that group One West photo. There is Brian and there is Joseph. So what is going on? Why was Brian suddenly brought on after a short stint at Coinbase after creating a stablecoin? What was he even doing there? Well, here's where things start to get wonky and not make full sense, but I will try to wrap it up towards the end. Here are Steve Mnuchin's words in December on a Fed coin, like a digital dollar. Let's listen in.
Okay, but the Chinese have decided to get into this as well. And so the last half of my question was, there's been some thought process about the Fed getting into it and having their own digital currency. Is this something you see necessary, something you don't want to get into, something that shouldn't be out there? Where do you see this going?
So again, I would differentiate what China is doing from what a Bitcoin or a Facebook would do. What China is doing is really issuing digital currency in lieu of physical cash, and they can track all that. So they will be able to track where that goes. That's different.
questi giorni ho visto sempre il numero maggiore di militari presidiare strade e piazze.
L'innalzamento della criminalità, dislocamento dell'esercito ed una totale controllo.
Che tipo di ricerche facevano qui? Queste persone non si fermeranno mai, e se non li fermiamo?
Politici e banchieri, altro che spionaggio industriale. C'è una sorta di governo ombra, capace di decidere delle sorti di intere popolazioni. E più mi accorgevo che c'era ben altro sotto.
Andiamo a cercare risposte.
Sai cos'è che placa la voglia di uccidere? Uccidere.
Cosa pensa di fare? Porre fine a tutto questo?
Io vado dentro.